they have their asylum claims processed. We also had very good discussions with the leadership of this facility, BCFS out of San Antonio, about practical recommendations for the Biden administration to speed up the process by which asylum claims are considered so that people don't have to wait either in these facilities, but most certainly in the CBP facilities that we've seen pictures of again recently. And so we're here today to find solutions. We're here today to go back to Washington and offer recommendations for how this process can be improved, how the asylum process can be improved, and people's human rights can be respected. And so we came away today with the feeling that we have something to share with the administration. The administration also visited here a few weeks ago. There have been other delegations, both Republican and Democrat, that have come through here. But most of all, our focus is on a solution to this issue. We're glad to see that the administration, the Biden administration, is building up the capacity to handle the kids who have presented themselves for asylum. Y'all have probably heard that there's going to be at least one facility, if not two facilities in San Antonio, also a facility at the Dallas Convention Center, and another one in California, in San Diego, perhaps in other places. But again, the ultimate goal is to get kids into the safest place, which is with family sponsors, so that they can have their asylum claims processed. And so I'm going to turn it over now to Representative Ilhan Omar, who was once a refugee herself to this country. And each of the members of Congress will introduce themselves and make their remarks, and then we'll be glad to take some questions. Representative Omar.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ilhan Omar. I represent Minnesota's 5th Congressional District. And I just want to start out by thanking Congressman Joaquin Castro for inviting us today and for his leadership on this issue, and to my colleagues in Congress who have been partners for good. I think being here and listening to these kids, hearing their stories, their hopes and aspirations, is a reminder that this isn't about politics and it isn't about playing games. It's about the humanity of these children. It's about respecting their dignity, and it's about empathizing on what it means to be in their situation. And for me, it took me back to being a young kid, just like themselves. We met today 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds. I myself was a child who fled, like these kids, unconscionable violence, situations I think oftentimes we forget to consider here in our comforts in the United States that many across the world are living with, even our closest neighbors. And what I was also reminded is that oftentimes when we are having these conversations, you'll hear people say, you know, couldn't the president just tell them not to come? Couldn't, we have messaging and signals sent from an administration, from leaders that tell these families to be responsible and to not put their kids through the horrendous journeys that they're putting their children through. And what I want to remind people is that when my father was making a decision for me at the age of 8 to flee conflict, he was making a decision for me to live. That was the most reasonable and responsible thing a parent could have done. And so I know that for the parents that have made the decision to have their kids take on this journey are making a responsible decision because they want their kids to live, to have an opportunity. And what better place, right, to do that than the land of opportunity. And I know that people who are living in these conditions are not turning on the news to see who's president, right? What will they be met with when they come to the border? They are thinking about what it takes for them to survive. That's the decision they're making. Some of the kids we had conversations with today, when you ask them about, you know, what did you want us to tell the president? What conversations do you want us to share? They're like, I just want to be treated with dignity. I don't know who the president is, right? Because majority of the people are not, political animals like we are. They're looking for an opportunity to survive and to thrive. And so I know that there's a lot of conversations we get to have about the politics and the logistics of all of this. But at the end of the day, at the center and the heart of this conversation are children. Children who are fleeing unconscionable situations, who desperately need for us to meet them with dignity and humanity, and to make sure that we are living up to what international law dictates and what our laws dictate in regards to allowing people to seek asylum in our country. So with that, I will hand it over to Congresswoman Barbara Lee.
Thank you very much. First, let me thank Congresswoman Ilhan Omar for really sharing the story, and the story as it relates to our children. And this is what it's about, the future. It's about children. And thank you, Congressman Joaquin Castro, for pulling us together to bring us here, because the decisions we make will be informed by what we saw today, what we learned today. And I want to thank you for really bringing it home for us. I am Barbara Lee. I represent the 13th Congressional District of California, which includes Oakland and Berkeley, California. But I was born and raised in El Paso, Texas, in an immigrant community, which I am very proud of. I have to also say that I look and I approach these children in terms of their health and safety from the lens of a clinical social worker, which is my professional background, but also as a member of Congress. What we learned today, one, is so important in terms of just the children's health and mental health. I'm always interested in their mental health especially, and looking at crisis intervention and trauma-informed care, which these young people, as you know, need. And I was pleased, and I visited other facilities under the prior administration, and I was pleased to see and learn that these young people have that type of crisis intervention mental health services available to them. Secondly, the young people who we talked to, they, even though they've had a very difficult time in their countries and coming here, they have a lot of hope. They want to see their families. They want to talk with their families. They want to be with their families and their sponsors. And so the time length that they spend here needs to be shortened, and we need to find ways to expedite the process so that they can be reunited with their sponsors and or their families. And I think that as a member of the Appropriations Committee, I serve on the Subcommittee on Health and Human Services, and as well as chair of the State and Foreign Operations Subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee with Congressman Pete Aquilar and Congresswoman Jennifer Wexton. I think what we learned today will really inform the funding decisions that we make as we move forward, to make sure that the children's health and safety are a priority, and to make sure that the time frame is expedited so that they can be reunited. Finally, I will just say, as chair of the Subcommittee on State and Foreign Operations, we are working with the Biden-Harris administration to really address the root causes. which Congresswoman Omar and Congressman Castro laid out. And so I'm very proud of my members on that subcommittee who really want to get to the root causes and to work with the Biden-Harris administration, of course with our Vice President now leading the effort to address the poverty and economic development and violence and all of the issues that underlie what we know takes place and why these children are here. So thank you all again. Thank you so much, Congressman Castro, and thank all the members for really, this is a mission of, I believe, what we have to do not only as members of Congress, but as human beings, as parents and as grandparents. And so it's really an honor to be here.
Thank you, Chairwoman Lee. My name's Pete Aquilar. I'm the Vice Chair of the House Democratic Caucus. I want to thank Chairman Castro, my chairman from the Hispanic Caucus days, and his entire team for helping to organize this trip. And you're joined by a broad cross-section in every way from the House Democratic Caucus on this trip. And we all come from our own perspectives, but we are focused on one of the essential functions that is our job of providing oversight. And we take that job very seriously. Congresswoman Wexton and Chairwoman Lee and I serve on the Appropriations Committee. I serve on the Homeland Security Subcommittee. And like Chairwoman Lee mentioned, what we saw and the conversations that we had will help inform the decisions that we are going to make to ensure that this system becomes better. We all agree that it is a broken immigration system that was compounded by decisions that the prior administration made, from withholding aid to the Northern Triangle countries to dismantling our asylum process. We know that we can do better, and we're pleased to have partners in the Biden-Harris administration who want to help us do that job. So I appreciate the opportunity to come see with my own eyes what is happening here, the conditions, to have conversations with these young people, to understand their perspective and to see that they have relatives who are willing to sponsor them in the United States. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I will now introduce Congressman Jimmy Panetta from California.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Congressman Castro, for the second time that you've hosted me to the border. I appreciate that. Thank you to all of my colleagues, and thanks to all of you for being here to cover this. My name is Jimmy Panetta. I represent the Central Coast of California and California's 20th Congressional District. Clearly not a border district, but I can tell you a lot of my constituents have crossed the border. A lot of their families have crossed the border. And so it's my responsibility to be here to make sure that those who cross the border to avail themselves of the laws of this country are treated with the same respect, the same dignity, and the same purpose that are the foundation of the laws of our nation. And what we've seen today and what we've heard today is that it comes down to resources. And unlike the last administration that was unwilling to provide the resources, I do believe that this administration, you are seeing resources being and will continue to be provided in order to deal with the number of people who are coming here, in order to deal with the unaccompanied minors who are here, who, as I just heard personally, are seeking a better life, as their parents wanted for them as well. And ultimately, as I have come to, as I grew up with my Italian immigrant grandparents, that is the American dream. And it's our responsibility here to make sure these young men and women who are coming here have that opportunity to fulfill the American dream. And that's my message back to this administration, is that to continue to work together so that we can fund the resources necessary so that we can continue to work with these men and women who are coming here. And so I look forward to doing that, be it on the Ways and Means Committee, I'm on the Armed Services Committee, I'm on the Ag Committee. All three of those committees, I believe this issue affects us. And so I look forward to working on that and working with all of my colleagues as we go forward to make sure that everybody has the same opportunities that we did. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. Oh. Sorry. Jennifer Wexton.
Well, hello and good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Wexton. I represent Virginia's 10th Congressional District. So Virginia, not a border community, but I did have an opportunity in my previous life as a guardian ad litem to work with some of the unaccompanied minors who were in foster care. And so when I heard what was going on here at the border, I wanted to come and see for myself and ensure that these kids were being treated in a way that was safe and secure and with the dignity that they deserve. And from what I saw here today, I'm very confident that they are. But I also came to see for myself what we can do better and to listen and to learn. And we came away with concrete examples of things that we can do to help speed the process so that kids don't have to spend so long in facilities like this. Things that we should do at the border to help speed their process there as well. And we're also going to have to address the long-term factors as well, because this is not something that arose overnight and we're not going to fix it overnight. So we need to get serious about also dealing with the push factors in the Northern Triangle countries. And I'm very pleased to have partners in the Biden-Harris administration to make that a reality. So thank you very much. It was great to join you here today. And now I'll toss it to Rashida to leave.
Thank you so much to Joaquin again for allowing me as a member of the House Oversight Committee to come myself and be the eyes and ears for many of our American neighbors all across the country who cannot access these facilities, and be able to look in the eyes and listen directly from the people being directly impacted by us not doing more to have a just, humane immigration system. You know, today a young boy from Guatemala just looked at me and I said, well, what is it that you want me to know? What do you want the president to know? And he said that I'm a human being, and it was that simple for him. And I looked at him, and for me, I want to do right by somebody that just is seeking that kind of human dignity, to be just acknowledged as a fellow being. And one of the really important things that we learned here today is these are frontline organizations on the ground here, federal agencies on the ground here who are telling us this is what you can do. This is what you can do to make sure that children can live, right? And today, as I got off this bus, all I could think of was Jacqueline, who was only 7 years old when she died in detention in 2018 under our care. I don't want that to happen to any child under our care. So it is our responsibility and our duty to come here, to be the eyes and ears for our country, and to make sure that we do right. What I can tell you is I'm optimistic that if the Biden administration has already sent folks here to listen to recommendations of how we can be able to make sure that these children are not already going through more trauma when they get here. You can hear that and see it in their faces. I'm a mother. I saw it in their faces. They're tired, but they're so still scared. And it's so important for us to be able to, again, understand that these are children. These are children. And so today they gave us those recommendations, and I'm hopeful that this leadership, with the folks that you see here today, will go back and make sure that, again, the resources are here, but also the policies are in place to make sure that, again, that we are treating them humanely. And there are processes now that are legal. And again, we need to make sure that we're following those processes and not allowing people to use these folks as some sort of political pundit. They're not. These are children. And it's, again, very important that we are here to investigate, to fully see it, to have that oversight, and again, do right by these folks. And again, you know, I don't want to hear about another 7-year-old or anyone under our care to have gotten that sick and died. And again, what I saw here today, again, was I was hopeful that we are leading with compassion, finally. So thank you all so much.
All right, well, that concludes our remarks from the members of Congress. We have time for about 3 questions. We've got to get back to San Antonio. Some of the folks are going to go on to El Paso, where Veronica Escobar, the congresswoman from El Paso, is having people to inspect the Border Patrol stations there. Antonio.
Okay, would you say these kids are better off here than being just let go on their own?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, and others have as well, the ultimate destination and the right destination for these kids is with their family or relative sponsors. It does take some time to process them, and they're much better off here than they are in the CBP processing centers where we have seen, not just in the last week or so, but even before, in years past, the conditions at the CBP processing centers, where you have people sleeping with what it looks like aluminum blankets and so forth. So this is a much better situation for them, but it's not the right situation for them.
Did they explain what is happening with kids who have tested positive for COVID-19? And did they choose the children you spoke with, or were you able to just choose which kids you spoke with?
They had a group of children for us to speak to, but we also interacted with others who were there spontaneously as well.
I had a question.
And those kids volunteered. Yeah, let me just finish this one. And with respect to COVID-19, they're taking all COVID-19 protocols. We were all made to wear N95 masks. We've all been vaccinated. So they're taking very, very careful care with the kids who are affected with COVID-19.
Yeah, what's
all right.
really different, I'm sorry,
Please.
What's so incredibly different from what I saw in the El Paso border with Joaquin was the lack of medical care. Here, it was extraordinary to see the number of medical staff here on site to address not only obviously the physical, but also the trauma, but they are, had us come and see how the quarantine process is and so forth. And again, many of them were already scared. They're 13, 14, very young kids, but you can see they very much have competent staff here, medical staff that are, I just saw them doing exams today, saw them again interacting with the kids continually, and again, and how they're also doing it is even among the groups is making sure they're not with folks that are not positive. So we saw that firsthand, exactly the process that they go through, and again, it was for me, I think as a mom, I was like, this is good. this is making sure that other kids are not impacted.
Congressman Castro, can you tell us, what were some of the specific things that they asked for that they said they needed? You mentioned that very early in
the recommendations for speeding up the process. Yeah.
Can you tell us what the public should take from the fact that you as all Democrats are here and Republican senators are over there, and there's this big issue that has to be addressed?
Well, look, we want to find solutions for this situation. And we want to figure out how this system can work better so that it's more humane, more respectful of people's dignity, and ultimately achieves its goal, which is to give people their day in court to be considered for asylum. Not everybody who petitions for asylum is going to be allowed to stay in the United States. That's a fact. But these folks should have their day in court. That's what they're asking for. And we should treat them humanely in the meantime. And so with respect to some of the recommendations, for example, there was a recommendation on how the federal government could keep people in places other than the CBP processing centers, so that they would still be identified for who they are when they come when they present themselves at the border, but they wouldn't be kept in those cramped facilities, and that you could process them more quickly by mobilizing the federal agencies to one location to do that, because we're talking about thousands of people right now. There were also recommendations about the work hours for folks who are working on these kinds of cases. In the past, people's work time was not utilized in the way that perhaps the best way that it could have been. And so we got a list of specific recommendations. Those were also passed along, many of them to the administration a few weeks ago. But I'm glad that we were also informed of them so that we can go back and press the administration on work on those things as well. Yes, Barbara.
One of the most important recommendations that has been presented is a variety of ways to shorten the length of time. Shorten the length of time that the young people will be here, so that they can, this is a transition point, so that they can be reunited with their family or sponsors. So they recommended how to do that in a very efficient manner.
And once again, it gets down to more resources. Like I said, we were talking about, well, how do you verify the family members that are not here and in other parts of the country? And it's sending caseworkers out there. It's doing background checks. And so that takes, once again, it takes a lot of resources to do that. You don't think that through, but that's all the steps it needs in order for these young men and women to be processed accordingly.
I just have to follow up on your response about the different things going on the border. The Republicans there, you guys here, you said, well, we want humanity. So are you saying the Republicans don't want humanity, or what should people that are seeing these two different things go on, and do we get anything from this as a public? Is this theater? And I don't know how many of you
No, I mean, look, we come to these facilities to figure out what's going on and figure out how we can make things better. And that requires not just our efforts, but other members of Congress and the administration and local officials and nonprofits. And so it's a big process to do that. And it takes a lot of work, not just from the members of Congress, but also from our staff who are here as well. And so we're here in earnest. I can't speak to, I know Senators Cornyn and Cruz, I think, are in the Rio Grande Valley today. I don't know whether they've done their event or not. I don't know what their purpose is.
Have you ever invited Republicans? Did you invite any Republicans?
Oh yeah, I mean, in fact, I think on Twitter, before we did this trip, I said any member of Congress who's interested in attending to reach out to my office. I've done that before on the other trips that I've done. And we've actually had, on occasion, in the past, not this time, but we've actually had Republican members of Congress that have been part of things that CODELs that I've been on to border facilities.
Yeah, well, any 7 members of Congress here, would you call it a crisis, that what's going on with the immigration and the border?
Young people fleeing violence is a crisis. A broken immigration system is a crisis. We can call it whatever we want. Our job is to help fix it.
Right.
And so that's what we are focused on. That is our job. That is our responsibility. And so while, and I know Kevin McCarthy and House Republicans came down to the border previously, and they had 0 solutions. When asked, what would you change? They had no comments. They wanted to play politics. They want to go to the most difficult, CBP facilities and point to it and say that the president created this. And what we're focused on is from the minute individuals claim lawful legal asylum to the minute that they are paired back with a relative, that is a humane process that goes from CBP to ORR to facilities like the one behind us, and that it is done in a safe and humane way. And so while Republicans want to talk about Mr. Potato Head and Dr. Seuss, we are focused on delivering solutions for our communities.
What are some of your recommendations to the Biden administration to make this better?
Well, we just shared some of those, and then we'll share some of those when we get back to Washington.
Follow up on that? What can be done immediately? Because resources is budget, is that all EO that has executive order?
One of the immediate things they said was ORR was dismantled in the previous administration, and they didn't put a request for proposal out to basically be able to continue to have opportunities for a humanitarian process for children. So it was very clear from folks here. They told us there was nothing because the previous administration completely cut the program or any humanitarian process. And then they said, they understood, what political maneuver that was, but we understand that hurt kids, that hurt our country, and not being able to, again, have this process in place that's humane and just. And so it was very clear if you look at the data, the information, but OR was pretty much dismantled. They didn't send any requests for proposals out to continue that program, and at the result, this is why I think we're.
So is it executive orders that have to be?
Oh no, it's already been happening.
Let me say this. I think it's been made very clear by the administration that it's not more resources they're looking for, that it is not the executive orders that they did that has caused what's happening with our borders and the children that are coming in. These are natural occurring, right? And so what they're looking for right now is to figure out how the resources they already have. The administration hasn't asked for new resources. The resources they already have, how to deploy that in the most effective way to address a problem that was created by an administration that believed you had to create maximum pain in order for immigrants not to come to our border. And so when you have an administration now that says we are going to deploy maximum humanity and dignity in treating people in regards to our policies, then we are excited because then we see partners in humanity. We see partners who see children who are coming to our country seeking help. And what we are ready for, right, is to listen to the recommendations that are made that the administration already sent representatives for, and as members of Congress, use, right, our collaborative work and say, these are the recommendations that you got when you were there. We heard the same things. What is it going to take for you to be able to implement these recommendations? What is it going to take for you to expedite these reunification for some of these kids who are here, who already have family members here? What is it going to take for you to have more licensed places so that kids who don't have immediate family members here can be in those environments? How do we expedite the asylum process for some of these kids? We also recognize, unlike Republicans, that there is a crisis happening with our neighboring countries. That is why you see the vice president be part of the head of a task force that is going to address that. Because we can't address migration without addressing the root causes of migration. And many of us have been talking about that for a really long time, right? People don't just choose to leave the comfort of their home and their country unless they have to. And we have a lot of resources here in this country to be both partners to our neighboring countries and provide resources in order for there to be mitigation in the migration that we are seeing. But it's going to take time. It's a lot of work. We're all committed to it. And it's really important that when you all are asking these questions, that it's not about just the games that are being played or the politics, but it's about the real humans and the real situations people are in, so that we can actually have conversations about what to do and how to move forward. Thank you all.
You brought up Vice President